You think about money every day. You think about what you have, what you owe, what you need. You check your bank account and feel that familiar tightening in your chest. That feeling is so normal to you that you assume everyone feels it, even the richest people in the world, especially them. But Elon Musk does not think about money. Not the way you do, not even close. And once you understand why, you will never look at wealth the same way again. This is not a story about being born lucky. It is not about Tesla stock or SpaceX rockets or any of the surface level things the news reports on. This is about a specific way of thinking that the ultra-wealthy use to completely rewire their relationship with money, and why that rewiring is the thing that creates billions, not the other way around. Let's go back to the beginning. In 1995, Musk arrived in California with roughly $2,000 and a plan to enroll in a PhD program at Stanford. He lasted 2 days before dropping out. Not because he failed, because he had a different kind of goal. He wanted to solve problems that mattered at civilizational scale. The internet, space, energy. He said it himself in a 2012 interview with Kevin Rose. The goal was never to make money. The goal was to make things that changed the trajectory of humanity. That sentence sounds like something a billionaire says after they've already made the money. A polished piece of PR. But here is the part people miss. He said it before most of the money came. He was nearly broke when he said it. And that fact changes everything about what it means. Most people operate from what psychologists call a scarcity mindset. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize laureate and author of Thinking Fast and Slow, spent decades studying how humans make decisions under pressure. His research showed that when people feel financially constrained, their cognitive bandwidth shrinks. They become worse at long-term planning. They become worse at risk assessment. They make smaller bets, take smaller swings, and constantly ask the wrong question, which is, how do I get more money? The right question is completely different. Musk asks, what is the most important problem that needs to be solved? Not what will make me rich, not what is a safe bet. The most important problem. Full stop. That distinction might sound philosophical. It is not. It is deeply practical. Because when your primary question is about impact rather than income, something else happens. You begin to see opportunities that are invisible to everyone still asking the money question. You begin to move at a different speed. You begin to take risks that look insane from the outside, but are perfectly logical from the inside. Think about what he did in 2008. Tesla was 6 months from bankruptcy. SpaceX had just watched its third rocket explode on the launch pad. Musk had around $40 million left from the PayPal sale, which sounds like a lot until you realize both companies needed roughly that amount to survive. He split it down the middle. He put the last of it into both companies at the same time. He did not do this because he was certain of success. He did it because he believed the problems both companies were solving were important enough to warrant the risk of total personal ruin. Ashley Vance, in his authorized biography, Elon Musk, describes how Musk broke down in tears in an interview around that period. Not because he was afraid of losing money, because he was afraid the companies would fail before they could change the world. That is a fundamentally different kind of fear, and it's what separates how he thinks from how nearly everyone else thinks. You've been told your whole life that smart people hedge, smart people diversify, smart people protect the downside. And that's excellent advice for managing money. It is catastrophic advice for building something that has never existed. Musk runs on a completely different framework. In a 2014 TED Talk, he described his thinking this way. He kept asking himself at every stage whether it was still worth continuing. Not whether it was profitable, whether it was still worth doing given what the world needed. This is what the researchers call mission-driven decision-making, and it has a measurable effect on performance. A 2013 Harvard Business Review study by authors Ranjay Gulati and colleagues found that companies with clearly articulated missions, where the primary goal is not profit but purpose, consistently outperformed purely profit-driven competitors during periods of disruption. Not because they were idealistic, because mission gives you a longer time horizon than any quarterly report can. Musk operates with what might be the longest time horizon of any CEO alive. He's not thinking about this quarter. He's not thinking about this decade. He's thinking about what humanity looks like in 1,000 years. That is not delusion. That is a strategic framework. Because when you're optimizing for 1,000 years, you make completely different choices than when you're optimizing for your next bonus. Here's the counterintuitive part. Ignoring money, or more precisely, treating money as an output rather than a goal, is what generates the most money. Because when you stop optimizing for revenue, you start optimizing for value. And value at scale always eventually becomes revenue. Always. The gap is just timing. Amazon didn't become a trillion-dollar company by trying to become a trillion-dollar company. It became one by obsessively solving a specific problem, making it as fast and easy as possible to get things delivered to your door, and letting the money follow. Tesla didn't become the most valuable automaker in history by trying to build the most profitable car. It became one by trying to build the most compelling, most important car. The money was a byproduct of the mission. Jeff Bezos, in his 1997 letter to shareholders, a letter he reprinted every year with Amazon's annual report for over 2 decades, wrote that Amazon would always optimize for long-term value creation, not short-term profit. That letter is now studied in business schools around the world, because he meant it, and because the results proved it. Musk had said something similar with different words. He's described money as a means to an end, a tool, not a scoreboard. When reporters ask him about his net worth, which has at times exceeded $200 billion, he frequently seems genuinely uninterested in the number. Not because he's performing humility, because he actually doesn't care about the number the way a person who is motivated by money would care about it. You can test this. Look at what he does with the money. SpaceX is still a private company primarily because Musk doesn't want shareholders forcing short-term decisions on a company with a 100-year mission. He said he would rather own less of a company that actually gets humanity to Mars than own more of a company that gets halfway there and then pivots to something more profitable. That's not a rich person thing to say. That's a different relationship with money thing to say. Now here's the part that applies to you. You don't need billions to adopt this framework. You don't need to have a mission that involves colonizing other planets. What you need to do is change one question. Stop asking, how do I make more money? Start asking, what is the most important problem I could solve? And what would it look like to be the best in the world at solving it? That shift sounds small. It is not small. It reorganizes your entire decision-making process. It changes what opportunities you see. It changes what risks feel rational. It changes how you spend your time. And over a long enough period, it changes what you build, what you earn, and what you leave behind. The psychologist Carol Dweck, in her landmark work on growth mindset, found that people who frame their goals in terms of mastery and impact consistently outperform people who frame their goals in terms of performance and reward. Musk lives this without ever apparently having read Dweck. He arrived at the same conclusion through pure first principles thinking, which is itself something he's famous for, stripping every problem down to its most basic truths and building up from there, rather than reasoning by analogy from what already exists. First principles thinking about money reveals something almost no one wants to admit. Money is not the goal. Money is what happens when you solve a hard problem well enough, at big enough scale, that the world compensates you for it. Chasing the money directly is like trying to catch a shadow. You have to go after the thing that creates the shadow. You thought about money this morning. You thought about it before this video started. You'll probably think about it again tonight. That's not a character flaw. That's what a scarcity mindset does. It pulls your attention towards the problem instead of towards the solution. Musk wakes up thinking about problems, not money problems, real problems. The kind that keep civilizations from collapsing. The kind that determine whether your grandchildren live on a warming planet or a recovering one. The kind that determine whether humanity stays on one fragile rock or becomes something that cannot be wiped out by a single asteroid. Those are not the only problems worth solving. Your problems, the ones in your industry, your community, your life, those matter too. And the framework is the same. Find the most important one. Build towards solving it with everything you have. Let the money follow. Because here's the truth that $200 billion can't buy you, but experience can teach you. You woke up this morning and thought about money. The people building the future woke up and thought about everything else.